back with some options. Backstop, no issue. Field improvement, no issue. Path, no issue. Sprinkler lines, no issues. Lighting, no issues. Maintenance, want the town to do some of that, Little League to do some of that as well with respect to painting and such. Similar to something that Menlo Park Burgess would be an appropriate, something to bring back to the council on the 18th.
Okay.
And then we need to discuss about maintenance of the facility or the bathrooms.
Right, what we bring back, I would think would be, these are the items the town's gonna be responsible for maintaining.
Correct, and the thought at this point of what we've been discussing is that as far as the repair and replacement of all this new improvements, that's gonna be a responsibility of Menlo ATHERTON, and it's gonna be written that way in the agreement. With regards to the maintenance of the restrooms, that was always gonna be a town responsibility, because as part of this, Menlo ATHERTON was providing a new restroom, but it was gonna be available for all park users. And so as a result of that, the logic is that the town would then, control when it's open, when it's closed, control the cleaning, but also pay for the cleaning and maintenance.
Now, there are other issues that we haven't discussed tonight. Some of the financial issues, what was committed, what the latest proposal is, but I don't think that's not really on the agenda at the moment.
Financial as far as the fee
How much-
structure?
Yes, how much they were gonna pay us. At one point, they were gonna pay us $75,000.
Oh, you mean, and the contribution to resurface the tennis courts and the contribution to plant some trees. I think that's not a,
Our original estimates were a number that went into the budget. In working with town staff, they said, here's what it cost us to resurface 3 tennis courts. We said, okay, double that, and then add, what was it, 10%?
Yes.
I believe add 10%, then that way when you have to redo them in 3 years, you've got the money there.
so I think that's already.
No, there are a lot of other financial issues. I mean, they're gonna pay us so much per player. I think we need to discuss all of these and make sure that we're on agreement.
And the annual fee and the maintenance issue kind of go hand in hand, as we work that out.
That's correct. And as far as some of these other items, they are included in the staff report at the bottom of page 507. What we're proposing at this point is that Menlo ATHERTON would contribute funds in the amount of $27,500 for the maintenance of the tennis courts, and that's because the tennis courts were recently refurbished through funds we received from our risk liability insurance carrier, and so the $27,500 would cover the next round of that maintenance. And then on the top bullet of page 6 of 7 of your staff report, we indicate that Menlo ATHERTON will contribute funds to the town for park beautification improvements to be determined by the town. So in other words, they would basically deposit an amount of money to the town in the amount of, will be 5% of the final construction cost up to a maximum of $50,000. So if that's what's being proposed here, so if there's some different direction from council, we'd be happy to take that in.
Well, I think that, I'm not really prepared to discuss that tonight, but before we approve this, we need to look at it. And one other thing, and this happened to be in the 4 lines that were voted on, it said they would also improve the children's playing area. I haven't heard anybody discuss that tonight.
The children's
I'll read it to you.
playing area.
This was actually, this was in the ballot.
An improved playing area for
That's
children.
baseball.
Improved playing area for children. And the new restroom.
Jim, hey Jim, as a drafter, it was my intention carrying out the plans that have been presented to the planning commission at that time, but were stopped. That was referring to the playing surface of the Little League field itself, the playing area of the field. That's
Okay, well, I mean, it sounded to me like they were gonna do something else with the children.
That's why there are all these other analyses and arguments, so that people, the very limited wording that you have for an initiative, it's impossible to get across exactly everything that's going to take place. But
Well, that's all right.
that is certainly ambiguous, and I apologize for that.
Well, it's not your point.
Okay, all right.
I'll blame you for a lot of other things.
And it'll probably be true.
So we're good with this. That's all. all for working through this with us one more time. It's just and thank you for coming and your input on it. We will come back in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Would it be helpful for us to have our architects in 2 weeks as well?
You know,
I don't think it's an architectural issue at that
No.
point, it's the
Yeah.
use of green.
We're paying
I
them
know
to be
it
here.
costs,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't think you need
I
But
think
we'll be meeting with Little League over the next
I think we're good.
week to
So,
hammer it.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Thank you very much for working with us. I appreciate it. Thank you, planning commissioners, for being here. Okay. We'll, 8:15, we have a few more items on our agenda. Item number 16 is our grand jury response to our response to the grand jury report on the South Bayside Waste Management Authority. City manager, would you like to just,
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. As you may know, the grand jury provided a report with respect to the SPW and the South Bay Waste Management Authority. And in the recommendations, it was a discussion of changing the board to elected officials and how that transpired out. Between the time the grand jury report came out and this item being on the agenda, that board's already been formed with elected officials. They've already gone out and assigned a patent consisting of professionals to assist. We have a technical advisory committee. So we responded to 4 recommendations and 7 findings, that we agree with all findings except 5 and 6, because we had already appointed elected officials to the board, and we implemented all of the recommendations because we've already appointed elected officials. So that's the SPW May Grand Jury report, recommending the council authorize the response to be executed by the mayor.
okay, we need 3 members to approve. We'll wait until our council member returns.
Sorry.
And we're 1 man short. Well, one short. One person short. In November, if any of you are residents, in November, there's going to be an election to choose a 5th council member. Councilmember Joe Carlson resigned in July, so we're operating.
Madam Mayor, just to be clear, because it's not a resolution or an ordinance, it only requires a majority of those
Oh,
present.
here, present?
So, I mean, it'd be nice to have
Second,
city
okay.
council member
Dobby?
Dobby
Yeah?
present.
Okay, well, I'll second that, and we'll vote yes, and just move on.
Yes.
I know that he's fine with this,
Okay.
Yeah.
so.
Uh,
Okay, so item number 17,
Item number 17 is another grand jury report requiring the town's response. It's asking, this one is with respect to the mosquito district, which we just heard a presentation this evening from Dr. Lerner. It was asked that we respond to 2 recommendations and 14 findings. Those 2 recommendations had already been implemented. We have a very qualified resident who's appointed to the board to represent the town. We also stated that we agree with 6, 13, and 14 of the findings. All others, in the letter, we noted we really don't have sufficient information to make a determination. There was a request, as Councilmember Whitmer mentioned before he left this evening, that he had spoken with me to include finding number 1, that we include that as an agreement. And that one is basically that the board and the manager do share responsibility for lack of oversight as the incident occurred of embezzlement. So he's asking that that one be added to the list of agreed to findings. That really doesn't change it in any significant degree, because we've already got the 2 recommendations implemented.
we're on item number 17, it's the response to the
Yeah.
grand jury
Yeah, I
report.
read this.
Okay, and the city manager said that Councilmember Whitmer wanted to add F1, the finding, as one that we are agreeing to, which indicates that the board and the manager share responsibility for the lack of oversight that was instrumental in allowing the embezzlement to occur. I can understand his
Yeah, that's fine. I'm in
approach
agreement
to
with
that. because the buck stops
Somewhere.
somewhere, right?
You do have representatives on the board here this evening that may want to speak to that.
I was just gonna say, would you like to make a comment about that?
You wanna just open
Public
it to
comment?
the
I would like to make a comment.
Yes, okay.
My name is James Counts. I'm a former operations director, retired with 40 years of service with San Mateo County Mosquito and Vector Control. I think the grand jury did a pretty good job in their findings. I gave them tons of information on this. I was partly a whistleblower in this situation. I went to the president of the board, I went to the manager, went to the DA, went to LAFCO, and I've done it to the grand jury. I sent letters to the grand jury. And I have documentation here to show that both the manager and the board neglected their jobs. There's things in here, it's not that convoluted. There's things in here you can look at and see basic math with lack of overture and not following policies and procedures. The woman that was hired for that position as finance director, she had already spent $15,000 in her first month that she had taken over the job. It was right on the visa bill. No one ever saw it. There were several of those situations that happened like that anybody working in the office, myself included, but I did not have access to that until we had the financial audit, and then I was given this information. I found all that. They asked me to go through it. The board has been less than competent in doing the job. The manager was completely checked out and was not doing his job. I have so much information, I don't have enough time to go over it. I'd be willing, before you make your decision, I'd be willing to come down here, talk to the city manager, the mayor, any council people. I can show you per diem basically here that this was completely self-inflicted situation that happened from lack of overseeing what the district does. As you read in the grand jury report, most of the board members don't even know what their job is. Unfortunately, half of them are like potted plants or there for the refreshments. It's really a sad situation. And I'm willing to do that. My name is James Counts. I'll give you my phone number, but I think before you make that decision, what I was going to ask for tonight is to have the representative, because Sam Lerner was both on the executive committee and he was on the financial committee. There were 8 people looking at the money and none of them saw any of it because they just basically do whatever the manager tells them to do. And so I'd be willing to do that, and it's something I think that we need to change the culture of the district. And it's not going to change. You have to have a new finance person. If that person was to leave, they got another person that was corrupt, this district would probably be in the same situation. And as far as they're talking about the people that hired, the person they hired worked under me. Okay, so I trained him personally. He's very good. He'd be a very good operations director. But what I'm saying is, I think you should really reconsider it. Don't sign something unless you really get all the facts. I have the facts here. We can go over it anytime. Thank you
What do
very
you
much.
think of this suggestion?
Well, I think you're not actually passing on the detail of the grand jury report. You've already implemented the recommendations. You have a qualified resident serving on the board, and that's all the grand jury is asking you to do. Not delve into the investigation itself.
You're outside your authority when you start looking into witnesses.
Yeah.
The problem is, this isn't about who's wrong or right, other than what the grand jury investigation thinks are the facts. And basically, the job of the grand jury is to look at the facts and then pass them on to the local entities that might be involved and ask for them to comment on what they have given us, and which is what the staff was recommending. And quite frankly, Bill Widmer's comment, number 1, puts the blame squarely on the manager and the board, and I don't know what else could ever be found if in fact we had all the evidence in the world. It still wouldn't change what the
Think
ground
this
truth is.
gentleman could provide us with any information that would be of value to us?
It's sort of, my belief is it's not our job. Our job, the grand jury has a job, the board has a job, the district attorney has a job if in fact the crime of embezzlement occurred. We don't have a job. We're not the jury looking at this in this case.
It would be akin to us looking into.
Can I just ask you one question? the city would like to be represented by somebody who's actually doing their job. And what I'm saying is Sam Lerner is not doing his job as assistant manager or the assistant vice president or the
I
president.
appreciate your point of view, but we're limited to what's on the agenda tonight by law. We can't go beyond that. That's not on the agenda tonight. The only thing on the agenda tonight is response to the grand jury. Now, if you would like to provide your comments to the mayor, council members, and the city manager with respect to whether or not our representative is doing a good job, any citizen has a right to present that
Okay.
evidence. But that has nothing to do with tonight, and we should not hold this up to receive that evidence.
Okay, so I have to call, just to answer your question, I can call the city manager or the mayor and ask for a meeting?
You can either do that, depending on their schedule, but, or submit something in writing if that's easier.
Okay, thank you. That would be facing.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And it's my understanding that a lot of changes have been made since this was discovered.
There's been a lot of window dressing. Some have been made, but it's a lot of window dressing.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So with the change in the report that's in our binders, we'll add F number 1 as agreeing with the findings and delete it from the disagree wholly. And other than that, I'd like to call for a motion.
Can I, please,
Is that it?
Wait, we have another
Member of the public?
Sorry, oh, yes, sorry.
Again, I am Dr. Samuel Lerner. I am currently the president of the board. I was on the finance committee during the embezzlement, and I was also a vice president of the board. I want to say that, yes, we were embezzled. Yes, we were responsible. There were two, it's all in the report. There were two people in the finance department. When I talked to John Byers, who was our county counsel, he said when you have two people conspiring, it raises a crime to a higher level. The county was embezzled right there in their DA's office. Portola Valley, their school district, the Woodside School District, the Mid-Peninsula Water District, all been embezzled in the recent past. We were victims. We had 20 board members, and I think we trusted too much. Since then, we have model internal controls. I know they've been sent to your office, the internal controls booklet. At one period, we sent them maybe a year ago. We're doing a great job now. We did do things wrong. And I wanted to say that you have to consider the source. By the way, 13 of us had to go before the civil grand jury. I was interviewed for 2.5 hours. Mr. Counts was interviewed. They probably got a lot of information from him. But I want to just say this, because my name was defamed just now, before, I wasn't even going to talk, before my city council. And I want to say this, that one must consider the source of comments when they're given to you. When it's by a disgruntled former employee
Excuse me just a
who
second.
didn't leave
Doctor,
on his own terms.
Excuse me for a second, Doctor.
Yeah.
Okay. You're starting to violate your own rules by letting one defame another. And two
Alright.
wrongs, excuse me, two wrongs don't make a right, even in the legal
All
field.
right.
Yeah.
And I think you need to. it's
Well,
not
I have a
on the
right to
agenda.
defend myself.
Yeah.
Not in this forum, because that's not, issue's not on the agenda.
I understand. So, thank you.
Well, I thought I was speaking to the agenda.
Yeah.
Thank you for your
All
comment.
right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So we'll come back and call for a motion to,
So moved.
okay, Carrie, second,
Second.
and Mr. Dobby, second. All in favor?
Aye.
So we move to submit our response to the grand jury, and thank everyone for their comments, appreciate them so much. Item number 18 is having to do with our drainage master plan consultant agreement. Community Services Director Michael Kashiwagi, this is great.
Thank you. Mayor Lewis, members of the City Council, staff recommendation is to award a consultant services agreement to NV5 Inc. to perform an update to the town's master drainage plan. The amount of the contract would be $49,505. NV5 was selected through a competitive proposal process. The town received 4 proposals from qualified engineering firms. The current master plan was prepared in 2001, and the purpose and the need for this update is that over the past 12 years, many changes have been made, including construction of many improvements recommended in the 2001 master drainage plan study, changed conditions due to new development, installation of on-site drainage systems associated with new home construction, different and more stringent national and state regulatory permit requirements, and the creation and adoption of the town's new drainage criteria, which the council adopted earlier this year. The primary focus of the update will include updating baseline information, drainage basin and drainage system inventories, reviewing and updating hydrologic and hydraulic stormwater information, reviewing and identifying improvements to relieve areas of chronic localized flooding, and to develop best management practice recommendations in order for us to be compliant with our stormwater discharge requirements. So that concludes staff recommendation or staff presentation.
Well, this is good. Any questions from my?
Yeah, I have a question. It's not exactly on this agenda, but it's pretty close.
Wait a minute. Listen, the city attorney's getting a little feisty, so he may just shut it down.
It's drainage, that really is covered.
Okay,
What has ever happened to the Marsh Road channel improvement?
that's gonna come back.
That is, yeah, we have been working with a consultant. They have been doing the additional work that was requested by council, and I think we're scheduled to come, we'll have the information for their October meeting with specific improvement.
Have they looked at the big pipe?
Yes, we have looked at the big pipe theory, and
That's
we will have a
been
response.
delayed.
before that.
That's the delay. No.
Now you're talking. That's a money saving. Okay.
All right. Any public comment on this agenda item, the drainage master plan consultant? Council?
No more comments.
So I just want to confirm that this will look at impact from residential water usage, like overwatering, irrigations, running down the, anything like that, and our detention trenches that we have to install in our new homes.
As far as the detention trenches, yes, but as far as the overwatering, that's when it results in drainage, but it's really more of a water conservation.
That's something the
issue.
Environmental Programs Committee should take up right now. Okay. The other thing is, are we going to look at this on more of a regional basis and how our drainage, would tie into Redwood City and flow out to the bay or anything like that?
No, I mean, that was really looked at in the 2001, so we're certainly going to update the hydrology and hydraulics. A lot of the focus of this update is really going to be to update the inventory. And then also, as all of you are aware, we have areas throughout town that whenever it rains, we have chronic localized flooding.
Mm-hmm.
And so really to take a look at that, to come up with recommendations and costs for over time beginning to address and to alleviate that flooding.
Okay.
But if we can share the burden with a neighboring agency who uses our drainage course, we can certainly look at that.
Would say. The other thing is it El Camino, because our drains, in front of my house, the river runs through it down to the corner of Alejandra and El Camino into the only drain, because we don't have any drains on Alejandra. So, and will we try to connect up with?
That's one of the chronic, as a result of that, that creates a lot of localized flooding.
Right,
And so that's one of the chronic
Okay.
items we'll be looking at.
all right. Anything else?
Well, there's also an area near Stockbridge in El Camino, which
Yeah.
floods absolutely
Yes.
every year.
Yeah.
And it's,
One of the things I'm wondering could we ask the state, as it's a state highway, to help us with some of that? In other words, if they put in a great big drain right on El Camino, it would sure remove a lot of that water.
yes, and we've already had that discussion with the state, and basically did get a very positive answers. And their answer is that, like everybody else, they have no money, there's, it isn't creating any
We just have to
hazardous conditions.
keep thinking about it. Okay, so, this is good. I'd like to, call for a motion to accept this,
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good, okay, moving on. So, now the next one is, boy, I'll tell you, we've got the Hobart Palmer Park Master Plan Consultant Agreement, Mike Kashiwagi, Community Services Director.
Yes, and this recommendation is to award a consultant services contract to Bellinger, Foster, and Steinmetz in the amount of $55,738. Bellinger, Foster, Steinmetz was selected through a competitive proposal process in which we received 8 proposals, which was evaluated by staff and the chair of the Parks and Recreation Committee. The primary focus of this master plan includes taking a look at short and long-term analysis of current uses in our facilities, analyze utilization of land, space, and traffic circulation, identify primary customers and activities, develop policy recommendations for programs, uses, and fees, and to develop business strategies to help create a more sustainable funding source for needed park improvements.
Great, great. I see a member of our Park and Rec Commission here. Do you want to make any comments, or are you authorized to speak? No? Probably.
No, not this.
No? Okay. Anyway, comments from council?
No, I'm fine with it.
I cleared all my questions.
I thought you made an excellent choice. I think the qualifications of the lead planner is excellent. I mean, and so I have high hopes that we'll be able to have a document that we can work from, and we'll take all of the uses in consideration, current uses, proposed uses, and help us, make our Hobart Palmer Park and the people that use the park, make it a world-class venue, with keeping the heritage of Atherton in mind. I'll open up for public comment. Yes?
My name is Mike Bellinger, Foster Steinmetz.
Oh.
And I just want to say, if this is an example of community involvement, this will be a really exciting challenge. So I can see lots of energy and opinion.
I'd like to point out, almost everything Mike learned, he learned in Monterey, though.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Any other public want to make a comment? Yes, sir.
I just have a question.
Okay.
When this plan is put together, will there be any consideration of the implementation of the plan, where the money's going to come from?
Of course.
Excellent,
We know where the
excellent.
money's gonna come from, there's not only one source.
Well, I get frustrated by having grand plans and no money to implement anything, and we waste the money to the consultant.
Yeah.
Oh, no, we don't want to do that.
Well,
No.
charge of baseball.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Can't do-
No.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, I'll bring it back to council for a motion to approve this consultant.
So approved.
We got dual motions, a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
We're moving forward. Item number 20, private event response cost reimbursement. Oh.
They waited all evening.
Oh,
Is that right?
jeez.
Oh, man,
We didn't
I
touch the
was
sleep?
smiling. I was wondering.
In April of 2013, there was a presidential fundraising visit that occurred in Atherton. There was a helicopter landing and 2 residents were involved in private residences. The town's ordinances require that if you have a private event on private property, that you are obligated to pay any extraordinary public safety, police, or public works costs that are connected to that event. The town kind of fell down on the job there. Staff didn't get all the information out there, mea culpa to that. We should have engaged the residents at the very beginning, advising them, hey, if this is going to be an extraordinary requirement for services, you may be liable for some of the costs that are incurred. The town did incur approximately $8,000. We sent invoices to the White House, to the Secret Service, to the DNC, and to the residences, and didn't receive any remuneration. So staff pursued that and said we'd come back to the council after the close of the fiscal year if we hadn't received remuneration with some recommendations. And our recommendation at this point is, mea culpa, we fall on the sword for that one. We should have done some more education, more community involvement. Next time around, it won't happen. If there is an event, the edict in the organization at this point is if you're aware of a private event going on in the community and you're engaged from a public safety or a public works perspective, and you're going to have to provide service beyond the regular services, you need to advise that resident in front. Either you need a public safety, you need a special event permit, and or you're gonna be liable for those additional costs. And then we're gonna tighten up the education campaign in the community as well. So that's the staff recommendation.
Can we enforce it, George?
Yes,
Okay.
Once they file for a special event permit.
yes.
And it costs how much?
The event permit's is a nominal fee. I don't think it's that expensive at all,
It's
but
not $750 or something?
no, it's not absorbent.
Okay.
The actual cost of public safety services or public works services that are connected to the event could be.
Could be, yes.
But that's all dependent on the nature of the event and the extent of the event.
So
But
in
Jim-
this situation, it seemed like the event was always moving. We did not have a specific time and date of most of these events.
No, but to our failure there, we were involved at the very beginning with the Secret Service, and we knew there was an event coming, so we probably should have notified the homeowners, hey, this is a special event, you need to get a permit, whatever that cost is, and whatever the cost of our services are, above and beyond normal service, you're gonna be liable for.
All right.
And
The answer to Jim's question directly is, we can't go after the federal government. They have a supremacy to us, they don't have to pay us. But we can go after the resident and
Right.
say, you know, you live here, you invited, you had the event, you owe us the extra
What I'm
amount.
saying is, if the resident says, I'm not gonna pay, and Obama says, I'm coming anyway, what happens?
Well, that's what happened before, because we didn't have a special event permit
Right.
application. But once
That's
you
why I'm
have the
asking about
application,
enforcement.
Yeah, it's enforceable
If you have-
against the resident, because the resident has an obligation, once he or she's notified, that we have a permit requirement. And if the president or a dignitary of some sort from another country shows up uninvited, I mean, I gotta say that just doesn't happen, especially with dignitaries, you know, even foreign heads of state. They all coordinate through the Secret Service coordinates with our police department. We know where they're going, we just don't know exactly when, for safety reasons.
All right, I understand.
But it is also only for extraordinary services. There is a special event ongoing in town tonight
Right.
that involves a dignitary visiting, but there's no special event permits required. It's all on private property.
George, could you check with Newport Beach? They had exactly the same situation. They sent a big bill in, something like $38,000 to the federal government. I'd like to find out if they got any
Yeah,
payment.
City of Monterey had kings, we had the governor, we had President Clinton come through town a couple of times. And our unfortunate, our ultimate realization was, when you go up against the federal government, they just stare at you, smile, and go away. And so your only way of getting this is getting it through the resident. And in Monterey's case, they were almost always passing through town. The Pope came through town. They're almost always passing through town, going to someplace else, like Pebble Beach, Carmel, or Carmel Mission. So you've got to have a resident that you can go after and say, you're causing an extra fee.
As long as we can collect.
Yeah.
So, just for the record, it's any event, doesn't have to be the president or anybody else, if we are required to provide enhanced services. We provide a certain level of services, anything above that mark would be what we'd be looking at being compensated for. In this particular case, it just happens to be the president, but it's only fair to the taxpayers of here at Atherton and anywhere else, frankly, that if you have an event that requires resources that go beyond the resources that we have available at that time, that those funds should become attainable by the owner that throws the event. And that's where we're coming from.
That's correct.
Okay,
Everything from a wedding to a,
thank you.
thank you, George. You did a great job, and thank you. We're just receiving and filing this information, so. And you're going to wrap it up and end your story.
I have one question.
Sure.
It's already in the law that they're supposed to pay it, did they know that?
Yes, the town has an ordinance and a policy for special events. Special events for extraordinary services require reimbursement.
So the property owners should know that.
Yes, but we didn't have them fill out an event permit.
Unless you can prove it, unless you give them something in writing ahead of time, it's real easy to be confused when it's time to pay a big bill.
And that's one of the things that we're going to be doing better with staff, in George's direction, is making sure that, one, before we decide to levy or go after somebody, and historically we haven't. So we're now taking the position of educating the people in town, saying that if you are gonna throw an event, you do have to pull a permit and do expect to pay the bill so that the other taxpayers in town are not going to be paying for your event, the enhanced services. So that's our goal.
Have you asked these homeowners to pay for this?
Yeah, they were one of the ones we
We
submitted.
sent them a bill.
Oh, they just said,
Yeah,
No,
No.
no thanks was the response.
no, thank you.
no. So, Bob, somebody has a comment.
When you take out the permit, does it tell you in the permit that you're responsible?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So if they would have taken out a permit, they would have.
They would have known.
Notice, they would have noticed that.
Correct.
Okay.
We would have grounds to say.
So the
here she
question
goes.
is how do you get people to take permits out?
Well,
Well,
there are,
it was up to us really to go after them and say, if you're gonna hold this event, you need to understand that we've got an event permit that you have to apply for.
Right.
And,
And then if
this is
they
it.
don't,
Yeah.
But they
they
would
say they
have,
were never notified.
but they would have to, in order for them to get enhanced services, we'd have to have knowledge, and we could approach them at the time, saying, you are aware a special event permit is required, and that you're responsible for the additional fees above and beyond normal service. Hence, that's where the informed, if you felt uninformed, we would inform you at that point.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna move on to our next item, number 21, which is to adopt a resolution authorizing a budget amendment to increase our code enforcement hours. And we have Mike Kashawardi, Community Services Director.
Yes, Mayor, City Council members. This item is for the council to consider increasing the code enforcement staff time from the current 12 hours per week to 20 hours per week. This item is brought before you as a result of discussion to increase code enforcement resources that you had at the City Council workshop, goal-setting workshop in June. If the council would like to increase, then we need to adopt the attached resolution, which will authorize a budget amendment in the amount of $36,000, which is the estimated amount from now to the end of this fiscal year for the added code enforcement. The source of funding would be unallocated general fund.
Unallocated.